Hello everybody and welcome back to my channel. If you're new here, my name is Caitlin and I upload 3 times a week on this channel. Wednesdays are fashion and lifestyle videos. Fridays are university weeks in my life where I just vlog a week in my life at uni. And Sundays are my Unsolved Sundays where I discuss some sort of solved or unsolved true crime case. Anything really, mostly what you guys suggest in the comments below. Today I'm back with another instalment of my mystery week where, if you didn't know, I have been uploading a mystery video every day of this week, Sunday to Sunday. So check out all the ones that I've already uploaded and also keep an eye out for the rest of the week for videos that I shall be uploading. Today we're going to be discussing another unsolved case, and this is going to be a disappearance case. So it's going to be about the disappearance of 11-year-old Patrick Warren and 13-year-old David Spencer. So when you research these two boys online and look into their case, they are often referred to as the milk carton kids because their disappearance case led to kind of the first instalment of missing kids, missing posters and faces being put onto milk cartons and sold in stores. So theirs in particular was sold in over 800 Iceland stores nationwide, so that's why they're referred to, that's why the media coined that name. So yeah, if you want to learn a little bit more about their case, then keep on watching and we shall just get started. So like I said, the two boys involved in this case, their names were Patrick Warren and David Spencer. So I'm going to talk a little bit about the boys individually first, just so you kind of get a little bit of background into their case. Patrick Warren was 11 years old at the time of his disappearance. He was known as Paddy by his close family and friends, loved ones, and he was one of 7 siblings in an Irish family. Patrick Warren had a love for football. He was always known to have a love for football, and he was just known as being a typical young boy. David Spencer was 13 years old at the time of his disappearance, and he was known to be an aspiring boxer. He was considered to be a lovely boy, like he had some behavioural issues especially when he was a little bit younger, but he wasn't seen as a horrible person. He just had mostly anger management issues. So in the past few years of his life, he had been in and out of youth court just as a result of a number of petty crimes, and because of these minor convictions, they eventually led him to being kicked out of just mainstream schooling. I have a quote here from his mother. So she said he didn't like discipline and you couldn't tell him what to do. But despite this, like this minor behavioural problems, he was still considered to be a lovely boy. He did, like I said, have anger management problems, but he wasn't a horrible person and he will always be remembered fondly by his loved ones. On December 26th, so Boxing Day of 1996, David Spencer and Patrick Warren had been spending the day together playing just near their homes in a place called Chelmsley Wood, Birmingham. The area they were familiar with very well. It was the estate they'd always lived in, and they played out all day and all night. They were allowed to stay out because it was a familiar area. So they stayed out until just before midnight, which is when David left Patrick and he walked home to his home on Circus Avenue. When he arrived home, he asked his mother if he could stay at Patrick's brother's house because his brother's house was it was in the same estate, it was just around the corner from both of their houses. After his mother had permitted him to do so, he left the house straight away, intending on meeting up with Patrick once again. They had told their parents that they were going to go straight to Patrick's brother's house, but instead, because it was late at night, they kind of went against this and they actually just stayed out a little bit longer. They wanted to play just around their house just a little bit longer before heading over to Patrick's brother's house. So Patrick was riding around the estate on his brand new red bike that he'd been given the day before as a Christmas present, and David was walking alongside him just playing together. The boys travelled down a hill, crossed a road and headed into a petrol station that was just around the corner from the homes. It was like the local petrol station they'd been to loads of times before this. The two young boys bought a packet of biscuits, and then the attendant at the petrol station watched the two leave the petrol station and walk in the direction of the Chelmsley Wood shopping centre. This sighting was at 1:45 in the morning on December the 27th, 1996, and this was the last time the two young boys were seen alive. In the days after their disappearance, authorities searched every door in the area. They knocked on everyone's doors. They searched all the known hangouts in hopes that the two young boys had just run away or they were hiding with some friends, kind of not realising the serious repercussions of them going missing. But authorities appealed to the public widely. They just said, you know, we are concerned for these two young boys, they are missing, their families just want them home, but they kept reassuring the public, and this is kind of crops up a lot when you look at interviews and things regarding this case. They use the term streetwise a lot, so they say, but the boys are both streetwise young boys. So it's just something that, you know, it's crop up a lot when you kind of research this case. So despite there being no sightings of the two young boys since that day or since that moment, The authorities kept saying to the public that they were still looking for the two young boys, but they kept reassuring them that they had no reason to believe that the two boys had come to any harm. So because of this, more and more people began to speculate and believe that the two young boys had just run off with some friends and thought they were like rebelling, thought they were being funny, they were just having a good time with some friends, and that they would return home within a couple of days. A £500 reward was offered to the public, to anyone who could offer up information into who might be aiding their hideout. And then in April of 1997, Patrick and David were the first two young boys to be featured on milk cartons, their missing posters, in 800 Iceland stores nationwide. This was a campaign in workings with the National Missing Persons Helpline, just to help their safe return home, because they just figured someone is still unknowingly harbouring these two young boys whose parents want them to return home. And at this point the media coined the term the milk carton kids, and unfortunately the campaign turned up no new leads. However, there are a number of factors that were kind of discovered at the time, but it was only upon looking at them in retrospect that argued this claim that there were no new leads, and many people argue that the police kind of slacked off a lot on this case, and there was poor police work in general because there were a lot of things that could have been done differently. So I'll just go into sort of those discoveries now. So the red bike that I mentioned that Patrick had received for Christmas that year and was riding around on that night was actually discovered behind the petrol station where they were last seen. So the discovery of the bike was made by a young boy on the 27th of December, so kind of around the same time that they went missing, and no one knew that it was Patrick's bike. The police hadn't made the link that it could potentially be Patrick's missing bike until weeks after this. A number of people have actually come forward and said that they don't believe that the police did the best they could have done on this investigation, and a lot of people, including kind of high up professional criminal investigators, have claimed that it was most likely, or they believe that the police kind of didn't take their case as seriously as other cases at the time because of the working class background of the two young boys, hence the stress on the word streetwise. In 2006, the case of the two boys' disappearance was actually reopened and reinvestigated, and they kind of looked at it this time round with the idea of foul play possibly being involved. The sex offenders register didn't actually exist at the time when the boys disappeared, but since it had become more prominent at the time of the reopening of the investigation, they actually looked at known criminals who lived in the area or around the area at that time, and they investigated each one and ruled them all out. However, it did flag up a known paedophile who'd been living just a few miles from where the boys had gone missing at that time, and his name was Brian Field. Just 3 years after the disappearance of the two young boys, Brian Field would be arrested on a DUI charge in Chelmsford Wood, and the DNA gathered at the scene of the DUI charge actually led to a match being found, and subsequently he was arrested for the rape and murder of a schoolboy in Surrey. His name was Roy Tuthill, I think is how you pronounce it, and he raped and murdered Roy Tuthill in 1968. So this DNA evidence of a more recent charging and arrest actually led to the discovery and closing of a previous case. He'd also actually served a prison sentence in the 1980s for the kidnapping of 2 boys, so he became a huge suspect in this case. At this point, investigators knew that he was in the area at the time of the disappearance, obviously because of the more updated and the recent developments of the sex offenders register, so they knew that he was very likely to be a regular customer of the petrol station that the boys had visited and disappeared or were last seen in. As well as this, he was also a landscape gardener at the time. He was working as a landscape gardener, which meant that he most likely had the means and the tools and just the ability to actually do something with these 2 boys, take them away or dispose of their bodies no matter what had happened that day. So Field was therefore listed as the main suspect in the 2006 investigation into the case, but because of a lack of evidence and because obviously a lot of this is circumstantial and speculation, there was no conviction made. They couldn't take it any further. So Field is currently serving a life sentence for the rape and murder of Roy Tuthill in 1968, which means he is already incarcerated, but unfortunately he cannot be convicted of the disappearance or the murder, anything to do with Patrick Warren and David Spencer's case, because there is no evidence linking him to it. So unfortunately this case, as much as I said it was kind of an unsolved case, a lot of people believe it's solved, but unfortunately with no conviction. So yeah, that's kind of the main information around this case, and let me know what you guys think below. There are some people out there who don't believe Field had anything to do with it, but I just think personally is the main suspect, and as much as there isn't enough evidence to actually convict him, there seems to be enough evidence for him to seem extremely guilty. So let me know what you think down below, as well as any other cases you'd like me to discuss in future weeks' videos, and I will see you guys soon for another video. Bye.